How has having kids affected your marriage?
When you have kids, I think you get to experience a type of joy that you didn't know you could before having them, right? But it is also hard, especially when you have a kid that's challenging. If you get lucky and you got 2 easy kids, maybe this is not that much of a strain. But when you get thrown a challenging kid, a headstrong kid, a stubborn kid, it's hard. And so you have to blend your styles and figure out what works for that kid, and you have to constantly evolve. I think it's required us to become more of a team than we ever were before. Every day we're going to have not necessarily fights, but conversations about what do we need to do differently.
Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando Leduc, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, back with another one. Lauren Larose from the Little Brain Campaign is in the house. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad you're here. So when I met you guys were like, we want to create this podcast show where we talk about the ins and outs of children that are struggling with behavioral problems, ADD, spectrum things. And you guys came in, and it was such a refreshing meeting because you guys were creating this environment of no shame.
Yeah.
And trying to remove the labels, right? And rethinking this entire process. And I was like, well, I'm in 100%.
Yeah.
Right. I want to back this because there's so many people out there and so many parents that are struggling with what to do, how to talk to their kids, when they get disciplined. A COO that works here, Will, his kid said motherfucker on, in the playground.
Yep.
So things like that. And so I'm so glad you're here. Give me a 2-minute backstory, and then we're going to get it into, the whole Little Brain campaign and all of that.
Okay. So Jessica and I met actually about a year and a half ago. We haven't known each other that long, but we became fast friends. She moved into my office with me. I'm a psychiatrist. She's a therapist. We both see kids. She moved into my office with me. So we started collaborating a lot. And we started noticing that we were hitting the same barriers with our clients, the same systemic barriers, parenting barriers. We had the same frustrations, and we had really good conversations and debates about it. And I tried on my own to make whatever changes I could make, with individual families or even trying to go to schools and talk to schools. And I just wasn't really getting anywhere. So one day we just said, what if we did a podcast? And if people listen, great. If they don't, that's okay. It's still a good way for us to kind of vent and get things off our chest. And so here we are doing it.
That's
and it's
amazing.
Been really fun.
Yeah. If you guys have not checked out the Little Brain Campaign podcast, go ahead and check that out. It's on Spotify and Apple Music and the whole nine. And they're really talking about some deep and interesting things. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about parenting because I treat my podcast super selfishly because I get to interview experts and then they can give me advice. So I'm always asking for for me. Mm-hmm. So I have a 5-year-old.
Okay.
My daughter spends most of her time with her mom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We're married. We're in the same house, but there's she just is with her mom a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. So she started this whole, I hate you, I love mama thing, which is fine, whatever. She's a 5-year-old. I'm not taking any of this, that serious.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
right.
I'm all I wonder where that's coming from. Am I doing something that is creating this feeling? You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on that?
When kids use big words, big, scary language, like I hate you, or I hate myself, or, you know, when they get older, they start to say things like, I want to die, or, you know, or like, you know, wanting other people to die. A lot of the times it's that they don't have the language to express how they're feeling. And so they just go to like the biggest, scariest word that they can think of, which at her age is probably hate, right? So she's probably, and you know, she's 5, so I don't think she's like consciously aware of this, but she's probably just upset that, you know, she doesn't get as much time with you, or maybe, you know, mom is doing a lot of things for her when you're not around, and so she's, you know, feeling resentful towards you, or whatever it is. Like there's some feeling there towards you, and she doesn't know how to express it because she doesn't have that language yet, and so she's saying, I hate you. Right. Does it mean you're doing something wrong? No. It just means that like she doesn't know how to effectively communicate how she feels with you because of her age.
So she loves playing Barbies, right? Her and my wife play well. Mm-hmm. She'll go, Bobby can play Barbies. And I'm like, all right. So I come in, right? For me, I'm like, you know, there's a story, there's some conflict. When they play, it's always like, I'm at the salon, right? Like I just can't, I just don't think that way, right? Yeah. And then she's just like, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? Like pretty much. It's just like, you know. And so every single time we play Barbies, it's just like such a bad experience for the both of us. Yeah. So what can I do to fix that problem?
I think like if you know that playing Barbies with her is not your strength, right? That's okay. You know, maybe you just have to figure out a different way to play with her where y'all are going to have a more positive interaction. Like, okay, I don't love doing imaginary play with my kids. I'm going to be honest about it. You know, I don't love it. I love playing games with them. Like I love board games. I love card games. I love playing sports outside with them. Like that's my jam. So I'm not going to be great at sitting on the floor with them and doing imaginary play for 2 hours about whatever the F they want to talk about. But that's okay. Like I don't have to be strong in all of those areas to have a good connection with my kids, you know? So it's just like figuring out where can I be in the moment with them? Okay, that's what I need to do, you know? And like maybe you just say, if you try playing, like if she really wants you to play Barbies with her, you know, take the invitation. Sure. And maybe just sit back and let her direct for a little bit. Even if you do 5 minutes, like you don't have to play for 2 hours with your kids on the floor. If you do 5 minutes, that's a good connection time. And then you just need to like explore what are things that I can do with her that I actually enjoy too. Gotcha.
So she's a very strong-willed leader type. Yep. Right? Mm-hmm. From her dad and from her mom, you know. So I'm trying to figure out, and I struggle with this because she's 5 too. Yeah. Right. So I'm all like, she's also 5. Yeah. But you know, you hear people go, well, you better fix this now before, you know what I mean? I'm like, do you fix this now? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So my question to you is, when like disciplining and trying to get like the kid to start to understand, hey, pick up after yourself. Mm-hmm. And like, when I tell you to do something, please go do it. You know what I mean? Like, and what are we, you know what I mean? And it's always this fight, right? We're just like, hey, please clean up. Nope. And I'm like, no. What do you mean no? You know what I mean? And then it's just like, you know, and what is the penalty, right, for not doing those things? What do we, you know, are we doing corner time? Are we doing, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here in order to like hold these little people accountable, or does it really matter at 5?
It's really hard. I mean, I can relate. One of mine is extremely stubborn and strong-willed and challenges us every single second of every single day. I think that when you have a kid like that, if you go into it with like, I'm going to gain control of you and like, I'm going to be the boss, it will forever be a headbutting match, right? Like they're always going to push back. And honestly, you know, I always have to remind myself when I look at my child who is that way, this is going to serve him well in life. You know, when he is an adult, these are all positive traits. Like he is not going to take no for an answer. He's going to push boundaries and push limits. He can channel that and be really successful. So do I want to squash it? No, I don't necessarily want to squash it. Does it make parenting difficult? Yes, extremely difficult. So I think like I've been trying with my own child to catch myself when I'm like trying to control him and I'm being the boss because I know it's going to end up in a fight. It's not going to end well. None of us are going to be happy, you know? So I'm trying to like figure out other ways to motivate him. And I will tell you, even for me as a mental health professional who sees kids, this is a daily challenge. And I am like constantly trying to learn better ways to do this.
Right.
So it's just like figuring out what makes them tick, what motivates them. I know for my son, he wants to feel important. He wants to feel like the boss. Like, you know, he wants to feel like an adult, like he's doing something important. He has a job. And so I try to like tap into that, you know, make him feel like he's in control of the situation. Like, oh, you're the boss of, cause I have 3 kids. Like you're now the boss of cleaning the table, you know? So then like I get what I want because he's doing a chore and he's contributing, but he gets what he wants because he's the boss.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right. I will tell you that the putting her down for sleep is like the worst experience ever.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. I'll bring you through the thing, right? 7:10, 7:20, we're going to go take a bath, right? We give her a bath. That process, getting her to the bath is a nightmare.
Yep.
Then we get her to the bath, getting her out of the bath. Another nightmare, right? Then we get her into her room. We read the books, and then leaving is also a nightmare.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Not necessarily when me and her are together, right? Like if my wife has a gig and I'm putting her down, necessarily have these problems. It's when we're together.
Yeah.
That's when the show begins, right? So what is your advice on, you know, making this process better, or is it just because she's 5 and she's going to grow out of this thing?
I wouldn't count on her growing out of it on her own. I mean, maybe she might, but I think a lot of parents get into trouble when they, you know, they fall into these patterns of like, okay, we started with reading 1 book a night and now we're reading 12 and it takes 3 hours to leave your room at night, right?
Yes.
And the problem is if you don't figure out ways to curb it now, that problem is only going to grow. And then when she's like 9 or 10, you got a massive problem, right? But it also goes back to like, she's pushing back when you're trying to take control, right? Like you have this timeline in your head. Okay, you need to be bathed by 7:20. You need to be in bed by 7:30. We need to read a book. You need to be asleep by 8 o'clock. I need to get to my bed, you know? And so she knows like when you're trying to exert control, that's when she's going to amp up like her bossiness, right? And it's probably happening more when y'all are both there, when you and your wife are both there, because then she's really got an audience, you know?
Right.
And she can really control y'all. Not that she's purposely manipulating you, but this is what, I mean, this is just what kids do, you know?
Sure.
So again, it's like figuring out for your specific kid, like what makes them tick, what motivates them. Okay. So like my son that I struggle with, we have had to change multiple times our approach, because whatever approach we have at the moment is going to tire out, like the reward or the incentive or whatever it is. So right now he has been begging us for a dog like forever. Okay. He really wants a dog. He is a dog person. He's great with animals. But we've told him like, you know, dogs are a lot of responsibility. You really have to show us that you're responsible before we're going to get a dog because you have to take care of the dog. And so we have these little dog stickers and we have a calendar. And he has like a list of things he has to do like in the morning, and he can't read yet. So it's little pictures. It's like, eat your breakfast, put your dishes away, get dressed, brush your teeth, comb your hair, get out the door by whatever time. So he has a list, he has a timer. And if he gets it done, by the time the timer goes off, he gets a dog sticker, he puts it on the calendar, and he has to get like 100 stickers before we get a dog or something. Okay.
So
and that's motivating
timer.
him. Yes. And like the key with that is that I'm not having to constantly tell him what to do. He's deciding if he wants to do it or not. And like if he doesn't do it, he doesn't get the sticker. That's it.
I like that.
Yeah.
And now it's motivating.
Yep. We've done tokens before, like where if they do, certain things without us asking, they get a token. Like if you brush your teeth without me asking, or the first time I ask, you get a token, and then they like bank up tokens. Like an actual
token?
They're like little poker chips.
Where do you get them?
But online. Just Amazon. Amazon has like,
it's like
you
money.
can buy a bag of
money.
like 500 tokens. Yeah, for super cheap. And then they each had a little bank, and they could buy things with their tokens. Like they could buy going to the ice cream store or buy 10 minutes of TV or whatever it is.
Wow.
So we incentivized everything. Okay. Because when you think about it, there's so much that you can incentivize. Like screen time is not a given. They can earn screen time. Snacks, treats, going places, those are all things that can be earned. And so you're just like flipping the script. Instead of like taking things away when they do something bad, you have them earn things for good behavior. And if they don't earn it, they don't earn it. That's okay. It's like not an argument. But if they do earn it, then it's going to reward that behavior, like reinforce the good behavior.
That's good.
Yeah.
Tokens.
They loved the tokens.
Yeah. And it's like, well, because it's like money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a immediate reward. It's like, all right, I do this, I get that. Mm-hmm. Be like 2 tokens if you pick that up. Yep. 1 token if you do this. Oh, I'm implementing that.
And we had like this huge chart that was taped up where they could all see it. And it was pictures. Like I drew out pictures of like brushing your teeth and then picture of like a token next to it. Because I'm sure your kid probably can't read yet. And so that way, like I didn't have to remind them. They could look at it and say like, oh, if I do this without her asking, I'm going to get a token. And I will say about a few weeks in, all 3 of them were doing the morning routine pretty much independently, like 75% of the time.
How old are they?
My oldest is 7, 6, and 4.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So in this space.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Where'd you learn that? Or did you just something
so it's called token economy. It's like a parenting tactic. There's a book called 1, 2, 3 Magic, which I really like. We when I was in training, we used that philosophy a lot. And they talk about it in 1, 2, 3 Magic. So, we did it for a while, and then the goal is like once your kids are doing the behaviors pretty consistently, then you kind of like phase out the token system, and hopefully they keep doing the behaviors, or over time you might have to change the token system. We got away from it just because we went into summer and then we were like out of town a bunch and stuff, so it was like hard to keep up with, but it worked really well when we did it.
Are you guys gonna bring it back?
Well, now we're doing the puppy dog system. So
gotcha.
Which is kind of, it's kind of like the same mentality.
Yeah. It's just behavior modification.
Yep, exactly.
With motivating factors.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to have to think about how to properly implement it, and then, obviously get with my wife, because sometimes I'll just be like, I have an idea.
Yeah.
And then I'll start working, but like we have to agree on that.
You got to agree on it.
Yeah. Yep. How has having kids affected your marriage?
Oof. It's hard. It's like, the highest highs and the lowest lows, right? When you have kids, I think you get to experience a type of joy that you didn't know you could before having them, right? But it is also hard. It's really hard, especially when you have a kid that's challenging. If you get lucky and you got 2 easy kids, maybe this is not that much of a strain. But when you get thrown a challenging kid, a headstrong kid, a stubborn kid, it's hard. And you have to because my husband and I were not raised super differently, but we were not raised exactly the same. And so you have to like blend your styles and figure out what works for that kid, and you have to constantly evolve. I think it's required us to become more of a team than we ever were before, which is a daily, every day we're going to have not necessarily like fights, but like conversations about like, what do we need to do differently? It is a daily, I don't want to say challenge, daily challenge. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you guys finding time for date night, and are you guys finding time, for the marriage, and how are you guys, navigating that?
We have, I will say, we have always done a pretty good job of prioritizing adult time. So we do make an effort to like go on dates, go to dinner, or like go on a double date with friends. That has always been really important to us. So we do a good job of that. I wish we had time to do it more, but we do the best we can with it.
Yeah, that's hard.
It is very hard.
Making the time is important. So switching gears a little bit, not too far, but Little Brain Campaign is the podcast. Let's talk about the podcast a little bit and what you guys are talking about specifically, and what the point of the podcast is. I know what it is, but let's just talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So we talk about a lot of different things. Some of the episodes are just myself and Jessica, my co-host. Some of the episodes we are interviewing other professionals who work with kids in some capacity. So we've talked to teachers, we have talked to ABA therapists, speech therapists, we've talked to other child psychiatrists, other child therapists, lots of different kinds of people, and just like getting their take on like what are the barriers they're running into in their line of work, what kind of trends are they seeing over time in terms of like, reasons for referral to them or diagnoses or parenting, all kinds of stuff. And then just like picking their brain about like, why do they think all of this is happening? So basically my goal in it, which I think is the same as Jessica's goal, like I just want people to start asking questions. I don't pretend to be an expert on things. I'm constantly learning myself and evolving, but I want people to ask questions, because when we start asking questions and we're curious, that's when we're open to making changes. And so I just want people to like think about what's going on, because there's a lot that's going on that's concerning. And it's stuff that I see in my practice every single day. And it gets very frustrating after a while when I'm seeing the same problems over and over and over again. And so I want other people to have like an awareness about that and start thinking about it.
And what's the impact that you hope to see, with this campaign, and how you guys see this in the next 5-10 years impacting, schools, psychology, different things like that?
I mean, I think ideally, and we're part of this like bigger group of like-minded professionals who are saying the same things. Like we're not the only ones saying this. There's like Jonathan Haidt, who's Anxious Generation author. He's saying all the same things I'm saying. There's a lot of different professionals out there who are trying to raise awareness about what's going on with mental health in kids. So the hope is that once everybody opens their eyes to it, then we can start making changes to try to reverse these trends, or at least pause them, because they're, it's rapidly worsening. Because, for selfish reasons, like I want it to be different for my own kids.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's the reason why I got started doing, I've been doing talks at like schools and businesses about social media for like a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And the reason I started doing it was because I don't want my kids to experience the world the way it is now. Like I'm hoping that it changes by the time that they get to the age of having smartphones and social media. So I want it to be different for my clients and kids in general, but I want it to be different for my kids.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Lauren, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Look in here, tell them where they can find you and where they can find the podcast.
So our podcast is called The Little Brain Campaign. We are on social media, Instagram. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. So please check us out, The Little Brain Campaign. We appreciate your support.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment. For all of your video production needs, podcasting, social media, we got you. Keep watching, keep listening, and we'll see you on the next one.